staff. We did provide GBI training to every county elections director on signature matching at the end of last year.
I think I've expressed some concerns about your settlement agreement, but one thing that's in the settlement agreement that has not been mentioned anywhere that I've seen is that you agreed to allow and consider in good faith providing county registrars and absentee ballot clerks additional guidance and training materials to follow when comparing voter signatures. It will be drafted by the political party committees. And to clarify who the political party committees are, it's the Democrat Party of Georgia, the DSCC, and the DCCC.
So they did submit additional guidance for us to consider. We considered it and did not send it to counties or utilize it for training.
Thank you. Could you get us a copy of that?
Sure.
Thank you. Was there electronic software available for signature match, and was it used, or were there any counties that did not use it? It's my understanding that the Fulton Republican Board of Electors did not certify the election, primarily because the electronic tools that were available for the signature match were not used.
I know Fulton County was looking at what they could do electronically. There was nothing prohibiting them from using electronic means to check signatures. I know they were trying to do some additional things where they would they wanted us to give access to bots to the voter registration system to do some of that work. And we said, no, you can't do that. But there was nothing prohibiting them from doing electronic. Do you know if they actually did electronic signature verification?
At one point they were considering it. I honestly don't know if they executed. I think they did not.
Is what I've heard about the Republicans not voting to certify because of that in Fulton County accurate?
I've not heard that.
We know they did not vote to certify. I had heard the reasons were, some concerns about absentee ballot signatures. We're going to have investigators follow up with them to see what specifically, so we can investigate those issues.
You mentioned earlier, and I wrote it down, that it's a lot to ask of these election officials to go through the volume of absentee ballot signatures we've asked them to go through. And you mentioned that the secretary does not think that signature match is the best way to verify somebody's identity. Given those two things, and given really the massive shift toward ABM in this election in particular, resulted in 1.3 million signatures having to be approved, why not look at the signatures and have a third party look at the signatures to help guide us and help inform us as to whether or not your assertion is accurate, that it is a lot to ask of them, whether the secretary's assertion is accurate, that it's not the best way, and to give us the tools in our tool belt so that we know looking forward whether we got it right or whether we need to change it.
So we are looking at that from any kind of individualized specific complaint that we get. We're looking at it. I think what people are asking us to do is let's just look at all of them, all the 1.6 million, because there were some that weren't returned. Frankly, I'm not sure that's something we have the authority to do. I don't think that's appropriate because we open our investigations based off of actionable complaints, and I think when we do, as we do that, we will get information that we're happy to share about how this process worked.
To date, how many signatures have you all reviewed?
So we haven't got to that part yet. We are first we get a complaint. We look at our system to see the main complaints we're reviewing regarding signatures are I didn't vote absentee. I didn't request an absentee ballot, but when I showed up, they said I had. So what we look at is say, okay, did they actually request an absentee? Like I said, what we've seen almost every time is they were on the rollover list. They had requested one earlier in the year, and they got one for this year because they had requested it, and they were in that bucket. And then I believe we have also been to the county and say, hey, give us these documents. So that's where we are to do the signature match. Give us the envelope, or give us the voter registration stuff on file so we can look at that. Actually, it wouldn't be an envelope, it'd be an application. But give us those documents so we can review them.
I'm sure some people have. I haven't suggested looking at all 1.3 million. I think it would be valuable, highly valuable, to pull a random sampling from multiple counties in this state just to know how close we got it, and to put that into the hands of people who have been trained and have experience in handwriting analysis. The last question.
The point that I would make
Sure.
on that is, I think the point that you're probably suggesting is what we would do then if it doesn't match is follow up with the voter to see, hey, did you sign this? Because it's not really the point of did it match or not. The point is, did that voter sit or not?
Well, the point is that they should have been sent to provisional ballot. That's the point, is that ballot should not have been accepted, and that ballot never should have been counted. The point would be is that the system failed us, and we have potentially, to your point, we don't know conclusively, even if the signature doesn't match. What we do know conclusively the signature does not match is that should have been a provisional ballot, not a ballot that was accepted. You mentioned earlier that we send DeKalb. We had about 20,000 ballots from those 3 counties alone sent out of state. Do you know how many ballots? We don't know conclusively, even if the signature doesn't match. What we do know conclusively if the signature does not match is that should have been a provisional ballot, not a ballot that was accepted. About 20,000 ballots from those 3 counties alone sent out of state. Do you know how many ballots, absentee ballots for the entire state, were mailed to addresses outside of the state of Georgia?
No, but we can get that for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, here's where we are. As we said earlier, you know, as we've worked to put this meeting together, things have changed. Different responsibilities have kind of bubbled up, if you will. Fulton County has some representatives here. I'm not sure at this point that we actually have someone from the elections board from Fulton County here. So I'm going to, in defense of you guys, I'm looking at Mr. Teasley in the back. We're trying to get someone from the elections board at Fulton County here to understand they have work to do today. Do you guys want to go for a little bit longer, or do we want to go to the you know, it's I know we got some questions, and I would love to do that, and I think this is very fruitful. I just don't, we had told Fulton County 11 o'clock, they're struggling to get here. I think they're willing to come in a few minutes later. I just didn't want to take advantage.
We're happy to stay as long as you guys want.
Okay, well, so
I think these guys might have to go, but I can stay, so you'll lose some of the knowledge.
okay. Well, that's what we'll do then. So I have, I've seen Senator Harper indicate a question, Senator Jordan, who else? And Senator Harbin. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Rules Chairman, you're not a member of the committee. You'll be last, but you can ask me a question. All right, so I'm gonna go to Senator Jordan at this point. She can reconcile that with the Rules Chairman at some point down the road, how she got chosen over the Rules Chairman.
Great.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Germany, from your remarks, it seems that the use of secure drop boxes was significant for the 11th Circuit's ruling that absentee ballots postmarked by Election Day but received after Election Day could not be counted. Is that correct?
Based on my reading of it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And with respect to that, then, in terms of drop box use, the Secretary of State, are those going to continue to be utilized through the runoff?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there any, do you have any idea if going forward they would be utilized?
Going forward, through the runoff, yes. You know, that rules, it's an emergency rule passed due to COVID. It's been extended through that time. Going forward, I think, you know, the state election board and the General Assembly can look at that and see, is that something that we want to continue going forward?
Okay, and then in terms of the drop boxes, it's my understanding that there was a pretty significant financial investment made in these because of the 24-hour video surveillance and all of kind of the security apparatus that were put around it. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, we were able to provide some reimbursement of that through different federal money to the counties, and I think they were also able to get some other grants for that. But that's correct. There was significant resources.
And as you stand here today, is there any evidence that any absentee ballots were not submitted by a registered voter?
I don't know, one way or the other.
Okay. I want to go back to the application thing, because approximately 1 million people have now applied for an absentee ballot in the runoff. Of course, a huge segment of those are from the rollover list, correct?
About, 600,000 are from the rollover list?
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so really, we're talking about maybe 400,000 extra. But for purposes of the public, applications are not ballots, correct?
That's correct.
And in terms of the process with respect to an application, you have a signature on the application, but there's also other identifying information with respect to the voter that is also cross-checked by each of the county election boards, correct?
Correct. First, they've got to be able to identify the voter. So, the voter's name and address, date of birth are all listed, and they use that to identify, is this voter registered? That's how they find a signature to verify. And there are some applications that are rejected because this is not a registered voter. So that is the first step. That's correct.
And so with respect to the signature check that's at issue here, the signature that gets pulled up is the signature that is from the registered voter's Georgia driver's license or Georgia ID card. Is that correct?
Correct, or from their initial voter registration application.
Right, but they are the original, they are the voter's signature, correct?
Yes.
And in terms of the instances where they have not matched, isn't it true that usually it is because of some kind of disability or infirmity that has happened to the voter? For example, someone gets Parkinson's disease, and so their signature becomes shaky. Is that your understanding?
I can't speak to the why. I know in what we have seen in the past when we have gone and done investigations on signatures that clearly didn't match, the investigation showed, okay, this voter did sign this. These were both the voter signatures, even though they don't match. I can't speak to why that was the case.
And I want to get back to something you said, because I thought it was a really important point earlier with respect to Senator Dalzell, which was in terms of the match, it really is just what you're trying to do is to verify that this is a registered lawful voter in the state of Georgia. That's correct?
Well, you're trying to identify it's that individual registered lawful voter, specific one.
Right, but that's the whole intent of this.
Correct.
The intent is not just to try to throw ballots out, but because that's why you have the cure process, correct?
Correct.
Because even if the signatures don't match, there is a process where the county elections board then reaches out to the putative voter and says, look, we don't know if this is you or not. You're going to have to come in here. You're going to have to sign an affidavit. You're going to have to show us your identification, correct?
Correct. And we expect this year, because this is the first real election that has been in place, that we will see a lower amount of rejected absentee ballots due to that cure process. And I think that's a good thing.
And so just to kind of close the circle a little bit on this application thing, because there's been a lot of misinformation out there that somehow these are votes that someone's sending into these various county offices. These are applications where individual voters have to provide identifying information and a signature that then is used to verify whether or not they are a lawful voter in the state of Georgia, correct? Correct. And at that point in time, an absentee ballot would be sent to that voter. And if that voter sends that absentee ballot back, then there is another check on the signature to make sure that that signature matches the application, but also the signature that is in the state system. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, here's where we stand. Due to official obligations outside of the Capitol, the Fulton County Elections Director is not going to be able to be here today. Ms. Jessica Corbett Dominguez, who is Director of External Affairs, is in the hallway. You all get back to me about that and availability on times, and if that's what the committee wants to do, we could certainly do that later. I also want to point out that
represents in my district, that on the day before the election, there were updates being done to the machines because of the Senate race with 24 candidates. The machine was having problems in printing that. Is that a true statement that those were being updated on the day before the election?
No. Is this Spalding County or what? Where's your?
I'm going to get to Spalding, but
Okay.
this was in Fayette County. I understood that there were people coming in with USB drives to update machines the day before the election.
We did to handle how that Senate race appeared. It was based on something that was found when counties did logic and accuracy testing. So in Georgia, we have a really robust logic and accuracy testing to make sure before the election the machines work like they're supposed to. They found something that was, Dominion said it's kind of a 1 in a million thing that they found it. So our election directors, the fact that they found it, I think is just to their credit. We were able to put in a fix for that to make sure it didn't happen. It was not the day before the election. It was a couple weeks at least, or maybe. I can get you the exact date, but no,
Okay.
Nothing would have been changed the night before the election.
One of our precincts has things working on. I understand the day before they were there working on, so that was a concern. I know that in the audit process, we found votes that were on chips. And when we start getting down photo finishes, we don't have instant replay. There were, in the first audit, we found votes that were still left on chips. Am I correct?
On memory cards, yes, Senator,
Memory
that's
cards
correct.
that were not handled, so that issue comes into play. And in Spalding County, if you would, I know that there has been the request for the resignation of the supervisor there. Could you expand upon what y'all found in Spalding County? Because that's a concern to me, because the machines were down on election day, things of that nature that I got a lot of calls on. And even this, one county matters because of the narrowness of what's going on.
So the first point you made is exactly right. We have narrow margins here. And so that's why everything we're looking at to bring to you guys, in the next month is based off of that. And when you have narrow margins, the media was asked us right after the election, are you seeing the evidence of widespread fraud? Are you seeing the evidence of widespread fraud? And our response was, we don't have a widespread margin. So that's not really our, that's not the goalpost. We have to look at every single thing, because that's how everyone on both sides has confidence in the results. This year was more difficult because of the huge increase in absentee ballots, as Senator Dolezal brought up. That's what changed this year, the massive increase in the number of absentee ballots. Spalding County in particular, I guess I'll start, and it might be, if I don't get it right, you guys can jump in. What happened there was kind of an improper loading of the poll pads. So that's what's used to check in when you go vote. Not the voting machines. This is that verifies who the voter is. And it wasn't. They weren't creating the cards correctly. It should be caught during LNA testing. For some reason, it wasn't. She had said they were updating the night before. We've went back and checked. It's not true. They shouldn't have been doing that, and they weren't. So I'm not really sure why she said that. But there's a very easy fix to that, which is you go straight to the machine, and there's another way to pull up the ballot through putting in an activation code. They did not do that kind of seamlessly. We had to remind them about that. Once we did, I think they got everything back up and running. But that. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. So they were short of emergency ballots, so that kind of slowed down for them when that happened.
Okay. Understanding one county could make this election and flip it either way, and that's why my concern is that we need to know what happened there, and that those votes, the right votes, were counted. My last part is this: is that military votes that went to P.O. boxes, addresses that were out of state, is there an audit process for that we can confirm that military votes were counted and accounted for, and also that those that went to P.O. boxes, as I understand it, are not eligible if they go to a P.O. box or a mail center? Am I correct on that, sir?
So you can't have a P.O. box or a mail center as your resident registered address. That's what you can't have, because you don't live there. You can have a ballot mailed to there if that's your mailing address. That happens a lot in our rural counties where they get mail at a P.O. box. But you cannot have a P.O. box as your registered address, and that's something that we look at and are continuing to look at. What makes it a little difficult now is there are places where you can get an address that's a mail center that, it doesn't say P.O. Box. It says, it looks like a regular address.
Okay.
But that is something we're looking at.
And last thing is, I understand that when the first audit was done, we had 52 counties who had no change, that stayed the same across the board. There was no change at all.
Do y'all remember?
That's on the scale, those 52 were exactly spot on without any changes.
Is that statistically probable when we have that issue in other areas? Just curious.
Just for the record, identify yourself when you,
Sorry, what?
for the record, give us.
I'm Gabriel Sterling.
I don't think anybody doesn't know you at this point.
I'm with the Secretary of State's office. I'm the Voting System Implementation Manager for Georgia. When we audit the hand tabulation, normally, we had a university study from Rice University that says a normal hand tabulation would be 1% to 2% off as a question of scale on average. However, all those studies have historically been done on hand-marked paper ballots. And as we know, that's where variability can come in terms of adjudication. So that's one of the main big parts about that. The 52 counties tended to be smaller counties, so you had less likelihood of having those variabilities come into place. And they generally were ones that had wider margins. So we didn't see that much change. Now, overall, in the entire state, we saw 0.1053% off in the overall number of ballots and 0.0099% off in the margin, which essentially shows that the system worked. Now, as Mr. Jeremy pointed out, 25% of the ballots were hand-marked and 75% were on BMDs, which goes back to the rationale as to why the Secretary prefers BMDs. There is zero ambiguity as to what the vote intent is. And most of the variability we do see was when they were doing the stacking, they were doing stacks of 10 and alternate them. And human beings being human beings, sometimes there were 9, sometimes there were 11. They balanced out sometimes, and sometimes the last one there might have been 2 or 3 off. So that's where those changes came from. And again, these were done, many were live streamed. They had monitors there. We were happier the closer we were to having no differences, but statistically, it's not impossible. We just have really good elections directors who are very tired at this point, but I think that goes to the answer there. The fact that we had variability shows it's a hand recount involving people doing the best they can.
Right, thank you. I just think that the biggest thing I see is this. We've got to give people the truth for them to have trust in our system, and that's why it's important, but thank you.
And this office has done everything it can to be transparent and truthful throughout the process.
Okay, we need to move along as quickly as possible, but I'm going to recognize Senator Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first off, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say thank you for calling the hearing today, and to our Senate caucus and our Senate leadership for their participation in making this happen. It's good to be with all of you today. I think it's imperative and important. I know I want to echo a lot of what some of my colleagues have said. We have heard from a lot of our constituents, and I think that's why we're here. And I appreciate all of you being here today just to answer questions so we can have this open dialogue, because I think it's important to have a transparent process where we're able to ask the questions that we're being asked on a consistent basis, and we can ask it in a way where everyone can hear the answers to those questions, and hopefully in some cases, in some of the things you've alluded to, we defy some of the issues that may be false that are out there, and that those concerns that may not be false, we can get answers to address and see what we can do as a legislative body to address those going forward. So I want to start off by saying this. I think and I can speak for everyone here today, I think the Pro Tem alluded to this, we do condemn the personal attacks on each of you. I don't support those. I think those are uncalled for, and anything we can do to support you in those efforts, we want you to know that we have your back, because we don't think that those are appropriate, regardless of who you are and regardless of what office you hold. But we know that there's a lot of excitement right now in this process, and I think all of you know that. But that's it. just some things that I've been asked from some of my constituents, and I think just kind of reiterating some of the things that have already been asked. The Pro Tem referred to the ballot drop boxes. On the video footage that we have that is required in regards to the drop boxes, you said that is reviewed. How often is that reviewed? Do we review all of that footage? Is there a process to do that, or is that something you're continually working through?
We review it upon request.
Okay.
If we get a complaint or if there's an issue, then we ask for it. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, how, remember in each county, there's a bipartisan board of elections. They can choose to review that as often as they want. And when signature matching, they can choose to be as involved in that as they want, and we encourage that.
Okay. On the ballot drop boxes, is there a verifiable chain of custody from the time that box is picked up, taken to the warehouse or wherever it is taken to until that ballot box is open to be counted?
Yes. So the regulation requires that at least 2 people who were sworn deputy registrars gut those ballots, count them, put them in a sealed container, fill out a chain of custody form, deliver it to the county elections office. At that point, they confirm the number of ballots, and then fill out the chain of custody form that it's been delivered.
So at that time,
And seal. The ballot container has to be sealed also.
So at that time that is done, we know how many ballots are in that drop box when it is taken to that place. So there is a count number of ballots at that particular time.
Correct.
Okay. So regardless of how long it may take us to count ballots, we know how many ballots we may or may not be counting in the next couple of hours during that time period. Is that?
So for drop boxes, yes, that's correct. And you're talking about for when they close them up at
Yes.
7 p.m. on election night,
Yep.
because they're emptying them every day and bringing them in. On election night, yep, they'll have that count, and then there's also ones that come in, to the office by that time, 7 p.m. just through the mail process. There would not be a count on those, but but they would be counted as well.
Understood. Thank you. I agree with Senator Dolezal in regards to the signature match audit and verification issues and a lot of what he discussed in that regard. And I know you've already answered those questions, but I think you hit on a really good point in the fact that making sure the person that sent in that absentee ballot is actually the person that signed that absentee ballot. Is there a process? Do you have a process, or are we working on a process where we can audit that particular provision? Other than auditing the actual signature itself, I think it would be just as important to audit the signature verification to make sure that person actually did sign that ballot. Is that something we do? Are we looking at doing, or is that something we need to work on going forward?
I'm not sure I follow. Is that separate from the signature verification?
Yes, it would be separate from the signature verification. You mentioned earlier in your response to Senator Dolezal in regards to signature verification, the best way to verify signatures is to verify that the person that sent in that absentee ballot is actually the person that signed said absentee ballot.
Yes.
Is there a way that we audit that to make sure that that is taking place maybe in a sample audit of some sort or a random audit?
The way we do that right now in Georgia law is through the signature verification. I think what we're looking at and what we will bring to you guys, what we think are possible better ways to do that going forward.
Okay, so you're looking to bring us some suggested changes on how we can tighten that up. And I know the Secretary has stated he would like to see some sort of ID provision in regards to absentee ballots, and I would support that.
Senator, if you will wrap it up.
Okay.
Maybe one more.
Well, I'll get to some of the meat of some of the questions that I have then really quick. I had a list of them, Mr. Chairman, but I'll
One more question, but I'm sure the
I'll,
Secretary of State will receive your questions.
If I could get a couple, I have a couple that I think I need to.
You're
I'll do it really fast.
You're eating into Senator Gooch's turn.
I'll do it really fast. Senator Parent referenced a couple of rulings from 2018. Do we know what president appointed those judges that made those rulings?
Yes, sir. For all the rulings that went against us in pre-2018, they were appointed by President Obama.
So there were President Obama appointed judges that issued rulings that went against the state of Georgia. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to put that out there. In regards to the consent agreement that was made in March, was the Georgia GOP involved in that process?
We've been fortunate to have some of the best election lawyers in the country representing us. And our lawyer in that process is also the general counsel for the state Republican Party.
So the lawyer that works for the GOP was involved, just not necessarily the GOP in general?
Correct.
Okay. And just in regards to the consent agreement, why did the Secretary of State or your office feel that you had the authority to sign that agreement when, in fact, the U.S. Constitution and the Georgia Constitution leaves authority to make changes in regards to state law? That is left up to the General Assembly to determine. What led you to believe you had the authority to make that agreement with the Democratic Party?
So we don't believe that changed law at all.
Okay.
The first thing in that agreement is you have to verify signatures, and if you don't, you follow the law. That's what it says. And I spend a lot of my time defending the laws you guys pass, a lot of it. And I take it very seriously. So I disagree with the sort of premise of your
Understood.
question.
I understand. I got the,
Okay.
out of respect to the witnesses waiting outside, we've got to move on. Senator Gooch,
Okay.
I'm going to go to you on microphone 3.
Thank you.
Please make it quickly.
I will try to do much better. A quarter of the votes cast on November 3rd or leading up to November 3rd were signature verified ballots, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we've just elected the most powerful position in the world leader, the President of the United States. If I go to vote, which I always do, I vote in person almost every time, I have to show a photo ID, which is usually my Georgia driver's license, has a photo ID. I hand it to the person that's working there. A fourth of these ballots that were just cast weren't verified by anyone except the person at the registrar's office without very little training, little to no professional training. We just elected the most powerful person in the world. If I go buy land in my hometown, I have to have a notary public to notarize my signature. Any other business documents that you sign, most of the time have to be notarized or witnessed. How can we certify this election this week, knowing that a fourth of the ballots haven't been verified by professionals or even audited? You said earlier, I believe to Senator Dolezal, none of your people have done any checks on those signature verifications. How do we certify this election this week?
So I agree with your, I think, overall point that photo ID is a good way to verify people. There was a lot of fear about it when we went to photo ID for in-person voting. I think what we found is it doesn't restrict access. It doesn't it doesn't decrease turnout. It's just a good way of checking, and it helps increase confidence in the process. In 2005, when we moved to photo ID, this body on a party line vote went to no excuse absentee voting that did not require ID. So that's our law. So that's how we certify it, because it followed the law.
All right, thank you. I anticipated hearing from Secretary of State's office for 45 minutes. I think you've been in the hot seat now for 2 hours, and I really do think this is beneficial. I think you've heard questions from the committee that are that reflect the sentiment of the people, and I hope that you would agree that this has been a good forum to kind of explain some of the misunderstandings that are out in across the state and frankly across the country. So I do thank you for your time here, and again, you all know that you have access to the Secretary of State's office. If there's further questions, we want to get there. I hope that the people of Georgia, the people of this country has had an opportunity to hear what you all have said. I think it's been very, very beneficial, and I thank you for being here. With that, I'm going to dismiss you. Thank you again for your time, and I believe that Miss Jessica Corbett Dominguez is in the hallway. If she hears me, maybe she can present here at the
And I would
first
say,
door.
if you guys have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to our office, and we will get answers.
And I'll be glad to funnel those questions to the Secretary as well, if that's beneficial to you. Will you just step out and be sure she can find her? So we do have a hard cutoff at 12:30, so this room can be sanitized for the next committee meeting, but I don't think that we have actually got an elections official from Fulton County, but due to their workload. So, you know, all I would say is that, you know, in your questions, maybe you need to keep in mind they may not be prepared to answer. I'm good. Okay, Ms. Corbett Dominguez, if you will, you can take the microphone. I think along with you, you've got Richard Anderson, the county manager, and Rob Pitts, the chairman of the County Board of Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you all taking time to be here, and we may at the future convene another meeting with hopes of hearing from Mr. Barron, Director Barron himself. And I feel like that as much as I have tried to not throw anyone to the wolves, I'm not sure that you're as intimately involved in the elections as the committee is
Sure.
maybe hoping for or expecting. So if there's questions that you don't have the answers to, just feel free to say that you don't, and we'll try to get those. Maybe you can forward those questions back to the director. And
Yes, sir.
and like I said, we may be able to have another meeting, or if that information needs to be provided to me, I can distribute it to the committee. But with that, I'll recognize you, if you will, because I may have blotched your name and your title. Just identify yourself. And
Yes, sir.
The format is you can make a presentation, and then we'll take questions from members of the committee.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Corbett Dominguez. I am the Director of External Affairs for Fulton County. I just wanted to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you for your leadership in this unprecedented year that we've all had. My office handles legislative affairs and communications for Fulton County, and we certainly have worked very, very, very closely with the elections department. And we do have a few items in the legislative package that our Board of Commissioners adopted that are relevant to elections and that we can talk about a little bit later. First, I'd like to let Chairman Pitts say a few words, if you all don't mind. He has been very involved, as well as our county manager. As you all probably know, 10% of Georgia voters live in Fulton County. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach. It's something that we take very seriously. So many people across our county government have been very, very involved in the elections operation. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chairman Pitts.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me go back to June, and based upon the challenges that we all faced throughout the state as a result of the elections in June, we made some changes in Fulton County. We took the challenges that we faced at that time very seriously. The first thing that I did as chair of the Board of Commissioners was to set up a task force of private citizens to look at the June elections, do a deep dive into what happened and suggest changes that could be made. And on that committee it was a committee of some 20 people. Two state legislators were on that committee. The recommendations from that committee were presented to our Board of Registration and Elections, and pretty much to the letter they were adopted. So we've made significant progress since the challenges of the June election. Specifically, what happened and what changes have we made in order to prepare for what I always refer to, going back to June, as getting ready for the big dance, which was the election, the November 3rd election. First of all, we increased the number of polling places in Fulton County by 91, so that we ended up with 255 polling locations for the November 3rd election. We also increased the number of early voting locations. We also bought 2 mobile units so that our voters would have easy access throughout the county no matter where they lived. We also, in working with our private sector, increased the number of poll workers. We had a pool of some 6,000 individuals who came forward wanting to help us, and we ended up having 3,000 poll workers ready and willing and able to assist us on November 3rd. The other thing that happened, and I had no idea, to be very honest with you, it was, I believe, I forget the exact date, but it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. My phone rang. It was my friend, longtime friend, Steve Coonan from the Atlanta Hawks, called and said, I got an idea. And we talked for about 1 minute. And I said, Steve, let me call you back. I called him back in about 2 minutes. And 5 minutes later, we had a deal. That deal was for Fulton County to partner with the Atlanta Hawks to open up State Farm Arena as an early voting location for us. And I can tell you, I had no idea the impact that would have and had, not only locally, statewide, nationally, and even internationally. And what I mean by that is, as a result of our partnership with the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena, NBA teams in other cities saw what we were doing, decided to copy what we did here in Fulton County, and it spread, and it's still spreading. It has gone beyond professional basketball to baseball and to even football. In fact, this afternoon, we will be announcing at 1 o'clock for the January 5th runoff, Fulton County, the Atlanta Hawks, and now the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United will be partnering with us. So we will now have not only the State Farm Arena, but Mercedes-Benz Stadium as an early voting location for the voters in Fulton County. I think that we have done an outstanding job. Budget-wise, we've increased our spending for this election cycle from $17 million to in excess of $35 million, and it's still growing. We've spared no expense. I'm aware of the criticism that has been leveled at Fulton County. We're the largest county in the state of Georgia, but I cannot speak to what the other 158 counties have done, are doing. I cannot. But I can tell you that beyond the shadow of a doubt, there has been no instance of any unusual activity within Fulton County. I have been personally involved in it. Has there been a situation from time to time where there's an issue with technology? Yes. Has there been a situation from time to time where there may be human error? But as far as an orchestrated effort to manipulate the votes in Fulton County, that's not the case. And what I have challenged anyone who has made those allegations to come forward, bring that information to me, and I will take it seriously, and we will get to the bottom of it. My focus right now, and the county's focus, the Board of Commissioners' focus, is to prepare for the January 5th runoff, the 2 U.S. Senate seats plus a Public Service Commission seat, and we want to make sure that our process is open, fair, and transparent. So that is my commitment to you, and I think that I'd like to ask the manager to come up if there's anything that I missed that I should not have said, did not say as an overview. But we're prepared to work with you. We'll follow the directives, instructions of the Secretary of State and anybody else. We just want to get it right. And I think, by the way, I would give ourselves, Fulton County, an A+ for the work that we did with respect to the November 3rd election. And this just came in. I think this is instructive and helpful. This is from the Metro Atlanta Chamber. On behalf of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, we congratulate and thank you for an organized, efficient, and transparent election. You and your staff have displayed exceptional calm during a time when emotions have run uncommonly high. Your regular updates kept the public informed, and your trust in the process remains steadfast. Our business community places tremendous value on the integrity of the electoral process, the cornerstone of democracy. For that reason, we are grateful for leaders like you who dedicated much time and energy to protecting this institution. As this election cycle approaches conclusion, we wish you continued success and restful holidays spent with loved ones. Please do not hesitate to reach out if we or our team may be of any assistance in any way. This is on behalf of the Metro Atlanta Chamber. So that simply speaks to the work that we've done with respect to the business community. But I have tons and tons of letters and emails from private citizens who say that their experience this last election was the best effort ever. And my pledge to you is to ensure that that continues for the January 5th runoff. Thank you. Mr. Manager.
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Chairman.
So Chairman, if there are any questions we can take, as you said earlier, we will do our best to answer them. And we can, if there's something that we cannot answer, then we will gladly work with our elections office and get those answers for any of the committee members who are here.
Okay, thank you very much. I do appreciate you folks being here, and I've kind of alluded to this. You've been in the hallway or somewhere for quite some time now, and our intent was to be very efficient with everyone's time, and you guys have been very generous with us. So with that, and keeping in mind that, you know, this is not the election staff. These folks have been very involved, but they're not the elections officials. So let's try to keep our questions. You know, I don't want to pose questions that we know that they can't answer, and maybe you can. Maybe this forum will have a good feel about it, and we may be able to get the elections director in here at a later time if
Yes,
we
sir.
agree that that's a good thing to do going forward.
And sir, I don't want to interrupt, but I did want to apologize on his behalf. We, as you all know, there was a recount. Last night was the deadline. We were able to meet the deadline, but we did have some reconciliation work that had to take place this morning. It took longer than expected, so I want to apologize. He certainly intended to be here, and I don't want that to be seen as a mark of disrespect by anyone. We felt like he needed to be there and handle that. So
Trust me, I understand. Ms. Abbey has been working, like I said, for 4 weeks trying to coordinate, and different things keep happening. So it's been hard to get people here.
Yes, sir.
So with that, since the buttons don't work, is there anybody that doesn't want to ask a question? I see the the pro tem indicates he has a question on microphone 14. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Pitts, for being here, and everyone for being here today and giving us your time. And I know you're very busy. I'll try to be brief. Give us a rundown on the water main break and what transpired there. People are seeing ghosts in the shadows, and
Yes, sir.
we need you to expound on that, if you don't mind.
I'm not sure. That thing is taking a life of its own. There was a leak of the floor above where we were counting ballots at State Farm Arena. According to Steve Coonan, CEO of the Atlanta Hawks, that occurred at 6:07 a.m. I forget the exact date. By 8:07 a.m., it was.
That was the day of the election?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was repaired within 2 hours. No ballots were damaged. No equipment was damaged. End of story. So how this has gotten to be what it is, I have no idea.
Were there people in there working at that time when the leak was discovered?
I was not there, but presumably there were people there because we started at probably 7 o'clock, I believe. I'm sure that some people were there.
So it happened at 6:07, it was repaired by
8:07.
8:07. So there were people there working at 6:07 when it was interrupted. Were they in the room? Were they asked to leave, and was the room secured? Tell us how that was handled.
Now, I was not there, so I cannot answer that question.
Okay.
And I will say this, sir, because the question of chain of custody has been raised. So I have had an opportunity to talk with the staff about that. I was not personally there. But my understanding is just in a room like this, if there was a leak over here, that does not mean that all of you would necessarily leave. And that is my understanding, is that the workers who were responsible for those ballots never left the room. They were in the room the entire time. They had to stop working for a period of about 2 hours. And that was the reason it was brought up in the first place, is there was a slight delay of a couple of hours where they couldn't access the entire room. But they did not leave, and they were, the ballots remained in the custody of the sworn workers.
Thank you for bringing some clarity to it.
Yes, sir.
And I'll just add that Mr. Coonan will testify to that effect, that it was 6:07. The reason I'm so specific about that is because he's told me on more than one occasion, from 6:07 to 8:07.
I may need to know the name of the plumber. I have some leaks from time to time. That's hard to get them fixed in 2 hours. Senator Robertson on number 2.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate y'all coming down. I must tell you, I would rather ask these questions to Mr. Barron, but I do understand the importance of today. I heard a lot of positives about the increased number of polling places by 91 since the summer, moving into November, and the increase in personnel to work within those places. So, and I heard the number 3,000 and other things. So, who was responsible for the training of those individuals, and was that training conducted and completed, and if so, by that person that was responsible for making sure they had it?
Yes, sir. So we do have, within the county, we have permanent staff who did handle the training of those workers in compliance. Of course, we receive training from the Secretary of State's office, and our permanent staff then conduct the training of our poll workers. We also, some of those staff were technicians and received training, as I understand it, from Dominion directly. And again, under the supervision of the Secretary of State's office. They, all of the workers were trained. We had a combination. Anyone who was responsible for handling equipment received in-person training. We also had staff who you would call line managers. So they would be outside the place to remind people to have their ID, to manage the line, just the kind of customer greeting like you might have at Walmart or somewhere else, to give people basic information. Those line managers in some cases received virtual training, but they were not personnel touching equipment.
Now, you brought up the Secretary of State's office provided the training. What they did is they provided the training to some of your permanent staff, the same way they do back in Columbus. And then it's the responsibility of the permanent staff to transition that training down to the individuals. But the Secretary of State's office did not actually do any of the training, did they?
Correct. They trained, as you just said, the permanent staff. So it was a train-the-trainer model. So they would the permanent staff receive training through the Secretary of State, and they in turn train those temporary poll workers.
Thank you. And how many drop boxes do y'all have in Fulton County?
We have 38.
38, and all of those are under video surveillance?
Yes, sir.
And have y'all had any requests for any of the video from any of those drop boxes that you're aware of through Georgia's Open Records Act or any other process?
That is a question I do not know the answer to. I'm not sure, Mr. Manager, if you knew, but we will certainly check on that.
Thank you.
Let me add one other thing about personnel and the technicians in particular. Going back to the early election, there was not a technician at every polling precinct. That should have been the responsibility of the manufacturer, as is customary, I understand, and the Secretary of State. That did not happen. However, November 3rd, at the 255 locations, we had, on our dime, a technician at every location that we paid for.
Well, and Mr. Commissioner, the county is responsible for the election, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the investment was wise for the county.
Yes.
As opposed to, and it's actually, I believe, on the dime that it should have been on.
Yes.
And I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. That's what I was afraid of. Senator Gooch, you recognized.
I didn't want to let you down. Commissioner, thank you for being here. And Richard, thank you. Dick Anderson, I've known you for quite some time. We appreciate what you do at the local level. I used to be a local government official as well. Can you, and I'm going to ask this question, not to be derogatory in any way, but just from a distance, living in North Georgia, every year we have elections, we watch our televisions or we watch the Secretary of State's results come in. It seems like every year there's a problem, either a delay or some kind of a technical issue or something in Fulton County. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just what I hear and what I remember. Is there something that you need from us at the state level or from the Secretary of State to prevent those delays and those problems in the future? Or can you tell me why there seems to be a continuous problem year after year?
I'll take a first stab at that, and I might defer to the county manager and our chairman. So I do think that some of that is, we are a very large county. We have more polling places than other counties. Fulton County is 70 miles from north to south. It does take time to close down the polls, get the results physically to the places where they can be uploaded. So some of that is geography and volume. I also, Chairman Pitts, I was born and raised in Cobb County. Chairman is a proud native of Jones County. We don't hear a lot about what's happening in Jones County on WSB. We don't hear about, out of our 158 sister counties, Fulton County is certainly in the spotlight, and we recognize that. So I think some of it is reality and some of it is perception. And Chairman, I don't know if you want to.
Could I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
Since the signature verifications is the responsibility of the local governments.
Yes, sir.
How can you ensure us as voters and citizens of Georgia that all of the signatures are authentic and not being forged?
If you don't mind, I'm going to take this off so I can breathe a little easier. So I would say, sir, that there's a state prescribed process that we have workers who follow that process. There is the first step in verification is to look at the driver's license signature for that voter if it is available in the DDS system, and that is the first step. If that signature is not available, then the workers go back to the original voter registration file and follow that process. And if they're not able to make a match from that, then that application or ballot is denied, and then the voter is notified and given an opportunity to cure that process. So I think that it is our intent to follow the law, to follow the process that is provided by the Secretary of State, and to our knowledge, that is what is happening.
Can you describe the training process of those employees? They were trained to do that?
I'm sorry, I don't think that I could speak in great detail about that. But again, as I shared with your colleague, that we receive training from the Secretary of State. Our permanent staff receive that training. We do have additional workers during a large election such as this where the volume is so much greater. And we, they received a train-the-trainer process. So I couldn't speak in greater detail than that, but I'd be certainly glad to arrange for someone else who could.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions? Senator Jordan, number 6, you are recognized.
Thank you, and thank y'all for being here. I really appreciate it. Really, one of the main things that I wanted to highlight is the fact that there were significant issues during the June primary. I think that everybody knows about that because of the publicity that followed that. And so I just want to say thank you for working with the Fulton County delegation. Thank you for really doing a deep dive in terms of the task force and trying to really figure out what were the issues and how could you fix it before November. And I think the fact that really with respect to Fulton County, how it has gone, I mean, the November election, I don't think could not have gone better in terms of the way it was managed. And so I appreciate that. I really, really do. In terms of what Senator Gooch said with respect to any kind of delay, Fulton County has approximately 835,000 registered voters, right? And so this time, it seemed like the results got out, I mean, as early as you could possibly expect them to get out in terms of the volume. Would you say that the fact that Fulton County or the various counties were allowed to at least just begin the processing of the absentee ballots kind of helped that process? Because previously you couldn't even start processing those ballots until Election Day, which of course then delays the ability to get the results out, especially if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people in a county. And so was that helpful this time, and did that impact Fulton County's ability to actually get the election results out probably earlier than anyone expected?
Thank you, Senator Jordan, and again, thank you for all you do in partnership with Fulton County. Yes, absolutely. We received about over 130,000 absentee ballots in this election, which is 10 times more than what we had in the 2016 presidential election. And we know that Fulton County received more absentee ballots than many counties across the state have in population. So it certainly is it's a tremendous factor for us. That was, absentee voting is the most worker consumptive form of voting. You have to touch the application, you have to touch the ballot, you have to do the signature verification as we just described, you have to then scan and process each of those paper ballots. It is much more work intensive than other forms of voting. So the more opportunity we have in the front end to handle that, the more successful we can be, absolutely.
Okay, so I think all the committee members know if you want to be recognized, you got to kind of get my attention. I will try to do that. And we do have a cutoff in about 25 minutes, but I'm going to, because he waved at me so big, I'm going to go to Senator Dolezal, and I think Senator Harbin, did you indicate? And if there's others, just let me know. We will we'll try to get to you, recognized Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. We really do appreciate it. I think the committee is grateful for your attendance and waiting on us as we spoke with the Secretary of Staff. I just had one question, and I asked this of the Secretary of Staff, and they were not clear on it. It's my understanding that the Republican members of the Fulton County Board of Election would not vote to certify the Fulton County election. So really two questions around that. I asked the Secretary of Staff if they knew why, and they did not know why. It's my understanding that the reason why is that you all did not use electronic signature tools that were at your disposal that maybe had been used in the past. So I'm curious if y'all could shine any light on why they may have not voted for that certification. And also I'm curious, are you aware of any other time, any other previous election where members of either party did not vote to certify your election?
Thank you. So I can confirm that they did not vote to certify. That is correct. I do not recall the reasons that they stated. I was not monitoring that specific meeting at the time of that vote, so I do not know what reasons they stated, but I'd be glad if the meeting was videotaped. I would be glad to send a link for the committee to review and could look into that. And I also don't recall specifically whether or not that ever occurred. It's possible, of course. It's a 5-member board, and there could be any number of reasons. So, but I couldn't speak to whether that has occurred in the past.
Thank you.
Okay, recognize the Vice Chairman Harbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm very interested. You said the NFL, the NBA, and the United were all partners. What does a partner do, and how does a partner participate in that process, if you would?
Chairman, would you like to speak to that?
What I mean by that is after the announcement of our partnership with the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena became public, NBA teams in other cities said, well, if the Atlanta Hawks can do this in Fulton County with their arenas, why can't we do it here? Because there was so much interest nationally in the election. So that's what I meant by that. So they partnered with us by allowing us to use that facility. The Charlotte Hornets, as an example, they did the same thing with their arena. The Detroit Pistons, then I switched, I forget exactly which baseball teams and which football teams did like. But in addition to that, and the professional athletes, and I say this, and I mean no disrespect to them, but many of them probably couldn't spell politics until this year, but they actually took the time to register and to vote and to get out in their communities and talk about the importance of voting. So what we started here has been a movement between the public sector and the private sector, government and our sports teams in particular. That's what I meant by that partnership.
And they also contributed staff.
That's right. In fact,
Excuse me.
Staff, the Atlanta Hawks, they had, when Steve Coonan called us, said we have about 300 staff people here that we're paying. So it won't cost Fulton County any money. We will pay our staff people. All you have to do is train them, get the equipment here and train them, and they did just that.
Did you have any players active as far as participating volunteering?
We did, including Coach Pierce.
Okay. The other one is I was very interested in is a mobile unit. How does a mobile unit function? How is it used? I mean, is it every day it's going somewhere differently? Is it going to nursing homes? Is it going to places where large groups of people are? How is that mobile process done?
We had a schedule that was published. You want to?
Yeah. Thank you. The mobile unit is treated as a precinct that goes. Let me just back up and say before we had the mobile units, Fulton County has several colleges and universities within the county. So during our early voting period, we would go to Georgia Tech for a couple of days, Georgia State for a couple of days, specifically the public universities, because as you all know, early voting has to occur on either an election day site or a government-owned facility. So we had the opportunity to do that. So we had a model already where we had early voting locations that were not open the entire 3-week period. So the mobile units kind of take that a step further. And so for any location that, again, was either a publicly owned facility or an election day site, we were able to take the mobile unit out. We publicized the list. We actually have 25 different locations throughout Fulton County, north to south. One of the things we do is we have 6 geographic commission districts, and we make sure sure that we divide early voting opportunities equitably among those commission districts. So, for example, the first day of early voting, it will be at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. It's going to visit Atlanta History Center, which happens to be one of our Election Day sites. And they will go for a couple of days, the same hours as whatever early voting is open that day. And the other advantage is if we had let's say a plumbing emergency or some facility issue at a location, we could reprogram that mobile unit to go there and provide relief on election day. So we could, the machines, the equipment is there, and we're able to have voters check in. It's Wi-Fi enabled, so we're able to offer voting and expand the number of locations. As I mentioned, Fulton County is very large and populous, and so it helps us be able to reach voters, again, all over Fulton County.
Who owns those units? Just curious.
We do. Let me give you two specific examples about the two units. The power went out at two of our precincts, one at Chastain Park, the other in Union City. Perfect example for deploying those two mobile units.
Okay. Okie doke. Thank you very much.
And yes, sir, they are owned by the county.
Senator Harper on number 4.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Really appreciate it, and thank you for your patience while we were discussing these same with the Secretary of State's office. Senator Jordan referred to the early period, the Secretary of State's office and the elections, State Elections Board with the
Yes,
rule
sir.
where counties were given extra time before the election to start processing ballots. And if she asked this question, I apologize. Did you or did Fulton County, did y'all utilize that emergency rule? Did you begin processing ballots early or?
We did. I don't know that we used the full 2-week period. We had ordered some equipment throughout the process. We augmented the equipment that we were provided by the Secretary of State's office. So I don't know that we used the full 2-week period, but we certainly used part of it and were able to again, a very high volume of absentee ballots, 130,000 more than we've ever had before. So that time was very much needed to begin that process. Even just sorting the ballots and those kinds of things is very work intensive. So I don't know that we, again, took full advantage of it given the opportunity, but we certainly were able to use that time and to the benefit of the elections process.
So, and you may not know the answer. You probably, and that's fine if you don't.
Sure.
You don't know what percentage of those ballots you may have processed before or
I
after.
don't, but I will certainly, I think we have that, and I will certainly look into it and try to get an answer for you.
And just kind of a follow-up on that, I know
Sure.
that you process those through the scanner. Do you know, is there a higher speed system that we might could use to help speed that process up a little bit? I think, because I believe that was a lot of the issue that Fulton
Right.
County dealt with that week was trying to process those
Yes.
those ballots.
I actually spent a whole night at State Farm Arena with the workers there, and I saw firsthand it is very time intensive. My understanding is that there are that vote by mail states, so like many Western states, use a ultra high volume or a very high speed scanner. We used a higher speed scanner than what you would use in the precinct, but it was still not, I guess, the highest speed scanner that is produced, and that could certainly be an advantage in a situation like that where you're scanning hundreds of thousands of ballots. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I'll see if I can get more information for you.
All right. I think most everybody else around the committee asked some of the other questions I was going to ask, so I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Senator Ramon, are you on? Do I see 2 7s down there? Are y'all sharing a microphone? Well, let's see. His may be. They're both number 7, so you don't have to share a mic. They're both on.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yes or no?
My ballot.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's more like a comment, something, we are, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to have the opportunity to meet us over here. And this is, as we all know, this is unusual time and unusual year and unusual election that we had. We heard a lot about the signature match today, but I may be the only person had a different issues. I'm talking about this unusual time. What happened is the district I represent, people looks like a lot different than in this room, except probably me. I'm the probably only senator that got a call that somebody voting in person and with the ID didn't look exactly the same the ID was made. Because of the COVID, grown had a beard and a hair, everything else, and the person was challenged to say, well, you're not, that's not you. So that's happening too. So we're gonna, I just want you, to committee member, to know what we're gonna figure out. Had a harassment that, had a call, had to interfere, and the person was able to vote eventually. But the thing is, this kind of discrimination happened too. Even here, you have an ID and a registered voter as a citizen, nothing wrong with it, and you voted in the primary, had no problem, and then you go to general election and say, well, that don't look like you. What do you do then? We're gonna have a face recognition a machine or something to have make sure you don't have a discrimination. And that's what I felt. And I had several folks in my district. They come from all different part of the world. I represent the people come from 100 different countries, speak 100 different languages. Sometimes some of these folks don't even speak good English. So we have a lot of other problem in the state of Georgia, not necessarily on the signature problem. I just want to put that out for your consideration. I want you to think about it.
We will see if we can get an answer. I think the appropriate channel for that question may be to the Secretary of State's office, and we'll see if we can get an answer for the committee on that. Are there other questions? Okay, Senator Robertson, number 2, you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. And really quick, something that you mentioned when Senator Harper was asking his questions is you pointed out a high-speed scanner that possibly might be available to expedite the process, while at the same time stating that your employees did not take full advantage of the time offered by the Secretary of State's office to do this. And I think that maybe looking into the process, because as a manager of large number of people, we need to make sure, especially something as important as an election, whether it's a city, county commission election, or any other election, that all of those involved are taking full advantage of the equipment, training, rules, regulations that are laid out before them. And I hear constantly, not just from Fulton, but from other counties, well, we're a whole lot bigger than this, and we're a lot different, and we have more ways to travel. You also have a lot more resources.
Yes, sir.
Something this important, threat assessments and planning and everything is so extremely important. So I have a problem of embracing excuses that are self-inflicted, that are brought up because of self-inflicted problems. And what Senator Gooch was talking about earlier is, I don't watch WSB where I'm at.
Yes,
I rarely read the newspaper here out of this city. But always is Fulton County brought up when there comes some kind of issue. And I think the important thing is for us to dive down and address the issue. And in public safety and everywhere else, the resources you have are greater because of the size of your community.
Yes, sir.
And so I get a little concerned with that, but I would hope before you went out and invested more of your money on high-speed scanners that, first of all, we get a good idea of what you can accomplish when you take full advantage of the regulations and rules offered to the communities by the Secretary of State's office.
Senator Robertson, I think that's a very fair point. I think that Fulton County is blessed with resources. We are the largest county, and one thing that we have done, I want to reassure you, is convene a team. And part of the reason I'm able to answer some of these questions today, although my job is mostly PR and legislative affairs, is because we have had a very large multidisciplinary team across the county, kind of a bear hug approach of wrapping ourselves around this as first the pandemic and secondly elections have been the two issues that we have faced this year, and have my boss, who is a wonderful manager and leader, our chairman, everyone from the chairman down to the staff who are wiping and making sure the facilities are safe for us, have had a full bore approach to this. And now that the election is over, although it doesn't feel like it's over quite yet, we, I believe, have already begun the after action analysis to help us do better. This is important to us. It's important to Georgia. It's one of the services that counties are responsible for that I think all of us hold sacred. And I think it's something that your point is well taken. And I want to assure you that all of us are here to help make sure that happens. So thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions in the room. I have one question, I guess, that I was worried about being asked, but as I sat here and I think about it, I want to pose the question, and if you don't have the information to answer it, then just say that.
Sure.
There's been a lot in the media about some of the elections officials or election board, I'm not sure what, that left while there was still some counting process going on. And the only reason I ask this question is that I believe with all my heart there's a lot of misinformation out that we're all struggling with, and we chase these little rabbits and they turn out to not be a rabbit at all. But if that is something you have knowledge of for sure one way or the other and could speak to that, I think this might be a forum to help clarify
yes, sir.
Some of the rumors.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity, because I was with the elections director the night of the election when this came up. We originally, we were processing absentee ballots at State Farm Arena. We had a number of staff there who had been there since early that morning when the water break that we talked about earlier occurred. One of the managers had apparently directed some of the staff to leave about 10:30 that night. I was with the elections director when he told them, no, you need to ensure that staff stay and continue working. We still have a lot more work to do. Some of the employees did leave at 10:30, and at that time, my understanding is that at the time they left, or before they left, some of the observers also left. They may have had conversation with some of the workers there and told them they were leaving at 10:30. I wasn't personally there for that, so I can't speak to it. There were people, however, there was a Secretary of State monitor who stayed, and once there was clarification that these workers were going to continue, additional monitors stayed. So I believe it was a communication issue. I always say that every problem at some level is a communication problem, and I believe that is what occurred there. There was no intentional misleading of anyone. There was nothing untoward that occurred, but some of the workers stayed at that time. Some workers stayed, some left. Some of the observers, as I understand it, had left, but there was a Secretary of State monitor there the entire time. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions from committee members. I do want to thank you for being here and filling in for Director Barron. And as I said, we may try to do this again. It's been, I know everyone is a bit overworked, and certainly, legislators or citizen legislators, and they all have other things to do. But I do believe that our senators take this responsibility very seriously, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that all of our committee members are here today.
Yes, sir.
I thank you all for being here, and we're currently about 6.5 minutes short of our absolute deadline to end the meeting. So I will adjourn the meeting at this point. I do want to thank you all for being here. I thank the media for their coverage, and apologize for the problems that we've had relative to the COVID situation. And before you actually leave, I see the whip has had a movement over here.
I just wanted to remind our audience. There we go. I just wanted to remind the audience, a lot of people out in the hall and back home that are watching that are concerned about what's going on here in Georgia. There will be another meeting at 1 p.m. and I believe it'll be aired as well on the same website. Is that correct?
I believe that to be true. That's not my meeting, and I can't speak authoritatively about that, but I have been made aware of that, and I plan to attend that meeting. As I understand it, and maybe we're talking about the same meeting, is a subcommittee of the judiciary that will be meeting in this room at 1 o'clock. And that's not my committee. So if there's any misunderstanding, I would direct you to the Secretary of Senate's website.
I just didn't want people to leave their positions where they are thinking this was the end of the discussion of the topic. It is for this committee, but there is another meeting at 1 o'clock. So
That's exactly right.
Right.
So again, thank Mr. Pro Tem. Let me get you turned on.
Thank you very much.
I'm in the microphone. I know you're turned on.
I'm wound up. I'm wound up, I can tell you. I want to thank the folks from Fulton County for being here and the Secretary of State's from being here. And we heard from Muskogee County folks that could not be here. Some clarification, did we not have one more group that we were expecting?
We had, so I'll run through that again very quickly. We had invited to this meeting election officials from Fulton County, from DeKalb County, and later Muskogee County, as well as the Secretary of State's office. But in all fairness, I think it was early yesterday morning, DeKalb County communicated with us that they would not be able to make it due to their off-site workload. And I mean, I think you guys have stepped up.
That's what I want to recognize, exactly.
The same thing is going on probably in every county. We have done everything we know to do to create a forum for the committee to get to the bottom of the issues that we're hearing, and to reestablish trust in the elections process. And I want you to know that as your chairman, if you have recommendations for a future meeting, we can certainly do that. I would ask for you to communicate those. Probably the best way is to communicate those through Abby, who does a phenomenal job for me. But as you do that, let us know what your availability is. I realize this is the Christmas season. I know as legislators, we all got, you know, the calendar really ramps up as you start into the next session. But we can certainly meet again, but I will not abuse your time, and we'll do whatever we can do to serve you. With that, the meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one closing statement. That's to thank you and the members for allowing us to be here. And if you have any suggestions whatsoever that you think will be helpful to Fulton County to make sure that January 5th is a smooth, is an open and a fair and transparent election, I would like to hear from you. I will welcome that, and I will not consider that to be any criticism of anything that we're doing, but we want help. If you can help us in any way, ideas, suggestions, we're open. If you need us back here again, we will be here. That's my commitment to you.
We appreciate it. Y'all
Thank
have
you,
a
sir.
Merry Christmas if we
Thank
don't
you.
see you
Thank
between
you.
now and then.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Right Side Broadcasting Network. We are live here at the Georgia State Capitol, where the Georgia State Senate had their oversight hearing today. Pretty informational. They touched on a lot of hot topics, including signature matching and using your photo ID in order to cast your votes. They said not to go anywhere. There's another meeting today at 1 p.m. regarding the same committee. Things are a little bit different, so we're trying to find out more information. However, again, 1 p.m. here today. There will be another meeting going on, same room at the Georgia State Capitol. We want to say thank you for everyone tuning in today. We do really appreciate it. We have a lot going on. We have the March for Trump bus outside the state capitol right now, so it's a lot of fun here in Georgia. We are still pushing hard for President Trump and expecting a lot of support to come out to the state capitol here today. We'll be here for as long as we need to. We also want to say thank you to our partners. We know that getting a restful night's sleep is crucial to waking up on the right side of the bed. And with Christmas right around the corner, now is the perfect time to check out one of our favorite Patriot-owned companies. You can visit mypillow.com and stock up on gifts for yourself and all your loved ones. They guarantee ultimate relaxation with a wide variety of items to choose from, ranging from towels, dog beds, mattress toppers, Giza dream sheets, and more. Check out their entire inventory online at mypillow.com. Keep in mind that some of the proceeds go to support us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, so we appreciate everything you do and you checking out their website. Be sure to use code RSBN at checkout for up to 66% off your entire order. Again, that's RSBN at www.mypillow.com. This is one of their hugest discounts codes to date, so make sure you use it while supplies last and get all your Christmas shopping done before this holiday season sneaks up on us. Again, it is currently 12:30 p.m. We're going to have to sign off soon so they can come in and sanitize this room here at the Georgia State Capitol. There's a 1 p.m. meeting. We're going to try to broadcast to you guys as well. I want you to keep in mind also that Rudy Giuliani is in the building. So he's actually in the room next door to us, and it's quite possible that we'll be seeing him here in this room later today. So we're hoping to be able to bring you that coverage in its entirety. Don't forget that RSBN is almost entirely viewer-funded, meaning we rely on your donations to stay in business. There's a number of ways you can help support us. The first one is by the $sign in the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube Super Chat. The second way is by checking out our website, www.rsbnetwork.com/donate. And the third one is by sending a check. You can send that to 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6 Box 344, Auburn, Alabama 36830. Before we sign off, we want to remind you guys of a lot that's going on tomorrow. It's been announced that Vice President Mike Pence will be in Savannah, Georgia with Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue at Defend the Majority rally. This is going to be, of course, Friday, December 4th, and the doors open at 12:30 p.m. That will be followed by the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, coming to Valdosta, Georgia on Saturday for another rally supporting the two Senate candidates. RSBN will be at all of these events, and we will hope to see you there. We're going to sign off now, and again, don't go anywhere. We will be back at 1 p.m. from the Georgia State Capitol building.
Ili kuwa mwanafamilia bora wa Global TV, usisahau kusubscribe, like, kushare na kucomment. Baada ya kusubscribe, bonyeza alama ya kengele ili kupata taarifa kwa kila video inayopanda Global